Raiders Nation, we need to talk. Something is seriously off behind the scenes, and it feels like nobody wants to face reality head-on. Preseason is winding down, tough cuts are right around the corner, and the fan base needs to know what is actually at stake before the regular season kicks off and things get real. So go ahead and smash that like button and stick around until the end, because this could change everything. And to start off, we got to talk about what went down in the second preseason game against the Houston Texans, because whatever luck seemed to be on our side just took a massive hit, the kind of hit that shakes up the whole locker room. The vibe in the stadium went dead in a scary way. Action had to be paused immediately, and absolute silence took over our crowd when cornerback Chigozie Anusium had to be carted off the field, completely motionless and under the worried eyes of all his teammates. It was serious. So serious that the entire team instinctively gathered around him in total silence, waiting for the worst-case scenario. Unfortunately for Anusium, that is exactly what happened. The Raiders officially announced that the cornerback was placed on injured reserve, brutally ending his season before he even got a sniff of Week 1. This simply doesn't make sense for anyone who's been following his daily progress in practice. He came in as an undrafted free agent out of Washington, fought tooth and nail, carved out a spot the hard way last season, and was looking to cement his name in the main rotation for good. He's got great size, he's got the speed to run with explosive wide receivers, and he plays with that natural edge we love to see in our secondary. If he can bounce back 100% from this setback, he's still going to have a real shot to ball out next year. But right now it leaves a massive hole in our depth, and that forces us to take a raw, unfiltered look at the big picture of our defense. The Raiders' secondary has been a literal revolving door for years. An endless rotation of guys coming in promising the world, but failing to stay consistent in either man-to-man coverage or zone protection with the safeties. The front office tried to fix this chronic bleeding. They brought in 4 talented defensive backs in the last draft and handed out a long-term contract extension to Eric Stokes in free agency. The coaching staff's hope is that we finally have a group capable of holding down the fort long-term, stopping the defensive leaks that cost us so many painful wins in the past, but the preseason is showing zero mercy to communication breakdowns and growing pains. Ryan McFadden over at ESPN dropped a stat that's going to bug any fan who pays attention to the finer details of the game. According to solid reports coming out of daily camp coverage, the Raiders struggled horribly in coverage through these first 2 preseason tests. Cardinals quarterbacks Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew basically played pitch and catch with our defense, stringing together 16 straight completions just in the first half last week. And to make matters worse, against the Texans, backup Davis Mills went 11 of 15 for 93 yards just in the opening half. The question on every passionate fan's mind is, does this young secondary have the mental and technical toughness to hold the line when the regular season starts rolling at that relentless NFL speed? Asking these kids to fix every single chronic pass coverage leak left over from last year overnight might be way too much to ask, way too heavy for shoulders this young and inexperienced. Hold up, take a deep breath, because it's not all doom and gloom on defense. Coach Clint Kubiak tried to bring some calm and a cold dose of perspective to his post-game press conference. He knows damn well the defensive unit hasn't looked fierce or dominant enough yet, but he made sure to drop a crucial detail that changes the whole equation. Our star defensive end Max Crosby didn't even sniff the field this preseason. And let's be real, the impact of our defensive monster completely alters any opposing quarterback's clock. Despite a shaky start full of doubt, the defense dug deep and willed their way to a win against the Texans at the end. Kubiak made a point of praising that aggressive mindset of hunting for turnovers, turning tight spots into golden opportunities. Being plus in the turnover margin is exactly how you grind out ugly, exhausting wins in the league. With Rob Leonard ripping the ball away from opponents, with our offense taking care of the rock, the wins eventually pile up. And even with the obvious chemistry issues early on, all that bottled up defensive talent could end up turning into our biggest, scariest strength as the season goes on, especially when you look at the question marks on the other side of the ball. So the question hanging in the air is this defense going to be solid and ready just in time for the Week 1 fire test, or are we going to pay the price with penalties, flags, and painful losses in the opening stretch? Is this a promising future being built, or an unnecessary gamble that could cost us the playoffs before fall even ends? And if the defense leaves lingering doubts, the ground game, game management, and special teams bring a whole other reason for real, immediate tension for our fan base. Because in the training camp battles, one of them stood out from day one for being completely lopsided and surrounded by drama. The front office made the drastic, controversial call to move on this offseason, cutting ties with former All-Pro veteran Daniel Carlson, a name that used to mean absolute safety in Las Vegas. To try and fill that massive void, they bet on signing Matt Gay in free agency, but they also brought in undrafted rookie Kansei Matsuzawa to spice up the internal competition. Toto, as the fans lovingly nicknamed the Japanese kid since his college days, became an instant sensation on social media and at open practices. The romantic idea of seeing the first Japan-born player to suit up in a regular season NFL game messes with the imagination and passion of any sports lover. But the cold, unforgiving, brutal reality of training camp has zero room for fairy tales when the pressure gets turned up. And things simply are not looking pretty for the rookie. He missed a crucial, totally makeable 38-yard field goal against the Texans. Before that, he'd been stacking up accuracy issues on kicks all through training camp and even committed the cardinal sin of shanking a kickoff straight out of bounds against the Arizona Cardinals. The Raiders cannot afford, under any circumstances, to roll the dice on that much inconsistency and shakiness at kicker. Matt Gay might not be a fan favorite or the absolute best kicker in the entire league, but he's a former Pro Bowler who at least locks down mid-range scoring with the stability and ice-cold nerves our team desperately needs to close out tight games. Right now, Matsuzawa is barely hanging on to the number 3 spot on the roster. Gay is going to be the starting kicker for the Raiders this year unless the front office decides to scour the waiver wire for a last-minute panic move. The only real lifeline for the Japanese rookie's dream would be landing a special exemption through the international player pathway and stashing him on the practice squad. If that paperwork magic doesn't work, the American NFL dream could turn into a nightmare before it even sees the light of day. And speaking of kickers, some folks behind the scenes are asking a question that's got people scratching their heads. Is the door for a Daniel Carlson comeback completely bolted shut? Matt Gay hasn't exactly blown anyone away this offseason, looking shaky in a bunch of spots. He's worked with special teams coordinator Joe DeCamillis before, which gives him a temporary shield for this year, but if he chokes on any routine kicks or loses us a game early on, the fan base pressure is going to hit like a hurricane. Carlson is still floating out there as a free agent, and while he didn't have his cleanest year last season, his 81.5% field goal clip was noticeably better than Gay's 73.9%. Is this smart roster management or a blind, dangerous gamble that's going to cost us big down the stretch of close games? And as if that chronic special teams headache wasn't enough, Coach Clint Kubiak had to deal with an internal discipline issue that seriously pissed off the entire coaching staff. The amount of stupid, unforced penalties by our squad this preseason is blowing past every acceptable limit of professional discipline. We had 8 costly flags for 75 yards in the opener, and right after that, another 9 flags for 63 disastrous yards against the Texans. This current roster doesn't have the margin for error or the surplus talent to survive shooting themselves in the foot over and over. Kubiak didn't hide his frustration and anger in his press conferences. According to direct reports from the coaching staff, the head man made it clear that a lot of the young guys are making rookie mental mistakes that simply cannot fly at the pro level. He took the initial heat from the media, but demanded maximum accountability from the players. Ridiculous special teams penalties, third down flags that bail out opposing offenses, defensive face mask infractions, and sloppy substitution screw-ups that have dragged on for 2 straight weeks. Unacceptable. That was the exact word the coach used. And the fans have every right in the world to be on edge and biting their nails. Handing out free yards to the opponent is the fastest highway to losing in this league. If the Raiders don't clean up this locker room discipline with surgical urgency, the hole we're digging is going to be way deeper than we thought. But if on one hand we're stacking up problems in question, marks to solve, on the other hand we might be holding an extremely valuable, highly coveted trade chip, something capable of shaking up the market in the coming weeks. Because in that tight 22-20 win over the Houston Texans, one specific name lit up the bright lights and proved once and for all that he's got more than enough talent to run an NFL offense: Aiden O'Connell. O'Connell stepped up and played the entire second half with an impressive maturity, completing 15 of 24 passes, putting up 166 precise passing yards, and posting a solid 83.0 passer rating. More than just cold stats. It was under his calm command that the Raiders clawed back from a deficit and pulled off a sweet comeback win. And guess what instantly happened behind the scenes and across league circles? O'Connell's trade value skyrocketed. Ted Nguyen, a respected analyst over at The Athletic, put it out there during the Lions and Commanders preseason broadcast, tossing the idea on X that teams desperate for backup stability should pick up the phone and dial Las Vegas. After all, the Lions have Jared Goff locked in as the unquestioned starter, but if he takes any unlucky hit, are a washed journeyman like Joshua Dobbs and undrafted rookie Luke Altmaier really going to steady the ship for a whole year? If that duo doesn't convince people in the final tune-ups, the hunt for a tested, reliable backup is going to turn into a national emergency in Detroit. What does Aiden O'Connell bring to the table that's turning heads? Ever since he walked into the NFL in 2023 as a fourth-round pick, he's seen live fire, grinding through valuable snaps in 2023 and 2024. He carries a 62% completion rate, nearly 4,000 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and 11 picks tracked by Pro Football Focus. He might not be a franchise savior, but for the crucial role of a steady, battle-tested QB2, he puts up numbers and poise that fully justify the interest of any stressed-out front office. With veteran Kirk Cousins stepping in as the clear-cut starter and first-round rookie Fernando Mendoza being carefully groomed as the future, O'Connell currently sits comfortably at number 3 in our quarterback room. That means the Raiders' front office could easily trade him for a valuable day 3 draft pick, cashing in on interest from any team unhappy with their current backup. Whether they listen to aggressive offers right now or wait for the strategic trade deadline crunch, Las Vegas has a real casino chip in their hands, and if he puts on a show against the San Francisco 49ers in the final preseason game, his stock is only going to go higher. The big question rattling around in fans' heads is, are we about to pull off a smart trade that brings back foundational assets for the future, or are we making the unforgivable mistake of ditching a vital insurance policy for our season? To wrap up this deep dive into rumors and analysis, even former coach Antonio Pierce stepped up in a recent interview with CBS Sports, sharing his unique insider view on our tangled quarterback situation. Pierce didn't hold back praising the current competitive setup, pointing out that having a locked-in vet like Kirk Cousins mixed with the raw talent of number 1 pick Fernando Mendoza is an enviable problem to manage, way different from the messes he had to clean up when he was running the Raiders' locker room. He doubled down that he's all for high-level healthy competition, but smartly noted that the top priority has to be protecting the franchise quarterback of the future, letting the young kid learn the ropes behind a respected veteran instead of throwing him straight into the Week 1 blender. The big question we're left to chew on is this new coaching staff going to follow that playbook of patience and protection to the letter, or are they going to shock us with bold moves when the real bullets start flying? Now I want to hear straight from you, the fan who bleeds this shield. Is all this strategy and tweaking pointing us in the right direction toward glory, or are we just sweeping a giant problem right under the rug? Drop your hot take down in the comments, because the real debate in Raider Nation never stops. So subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, share it with the crew, and stay tuned, because we'll be back anytime with more behind-the-scenes action and heavy-duty Raiders analysis. Until next time.